Two freelancers, same service and same skills. One charges $500 and the other one charges $5,000. The most demanding client picks the most expensive one and leaves very satisfied. And you might be asking yourself why this happens. Well, I'm going to tell you exactly why right here, right now. The client always picks the expensive one. Let me be honest with you, I've been in both sides of this. I was charging cheap because I was scared. Scared of losing the client, scared of being told no, scared of actually feeling like I wasn't worth more. It's not the portfolio, it's not the years of experience, and it's not the quality of work either. Do you know what it is? It's something much deeper than that. Let's talk about the first point, because the first person A, charges $500, which means that person sells time. On the other hand, person B charges $5,000, which means that person sells the results. Think about it this way, how do most freelancers pitch themselves? They always talk about one thing, deliverables. When you take a look at most freelancers, you will hear them say, I will give you 5 pages with 3 revisions delivered in 7 days. That sounds very professional until you realize that's the language of someone who sells their time. And the thing is, clients who buy time are always looking for the cheapest hour that they can find to get their work done. Guess what? The person who charges $5,000 does not talk about hours or revisions or turnaround times. The person who charges $5,000 talks about the problem that they solve and what changes in the client's life or their business after they work together. Person B, who charges $5,000, tells their ideal client something along the lines of, you are losing leads because your website doesn't build trust. I can fix that. They say things along the lines of, clients have seen a 40% increase in conversion after working with me. Do you see the difference? Person A is selling work, whereas person B is selling transformation. The key difference here is that the client only buys when it stops being about what you do and it starts being about something else. Just you. That's the shift. You are selling the outcome and not the process. The client is buying because of you and not really because of what you do. The second point I want to make is that the person who charges $500 says yes to everything. On the other hand, the person who charges $5,000 simply asks the right questions. You see, when the client comes to the person who charges $500, they will say, I need a logo, and the person will reply, sure, what colors do you like? The difference is when that same client goes to the person who charges $5,000, they will say, I need a logo, and the person will ask a lot of questions. Interesting, what's this logo for? Who's the audience? How do you want this to actually feel on your audience? What happens if this doesn't land? The key difference is how person A and person B communicate. It's a whole different ballgame. Person A simply asks the client what they want and they do it. Person B goes deep into the analysis. You've got to understand a massive principle. Clients pay a lot more for the people who think with them and not for them. When you ask the right questions, you simply signal that you understand the game at a much deeper level. You're not just a pair of hands who are ready to work, you are actually a partner of your client. The biggest advantages is that as a partner you get treated and paid very differently compared to an employee. The third and final point that I want to make, and this is probably the hardest one to hear, is that the person who charges $500 is afraid of losing the client. The difference is the person who charges $5,000 is willing to walk away. There's something very interesting when it comes to spirituality in business, because the price difference isn't just technical, it's energetic. When you need the money and you are desperate for the money, you negotiate down until the client accepts. You are literally begging to get a client. And trust me when I tell you, clients can feel that. They can read it even if they cannot name it. When you have other clients, when you're not desperate, when you're genuinely okay with this deal not happening, your posture changes completely. You have standards, you speak differently, you don't rush in to fill silences. You don't panic when there's pushback on price, you hold your ground and you stay calm. The thing here is that scarcity and abundance both project themselves. Think about it this way, the same thing applies to dating. When you are desperate in your dating life, you're not going to get very far, I can tell you that. On the other hand, when you're not desperate, it almost feels like the things that that you want come to you without you having to make any actual effort. Understand this: when a client senses that you need them more than they need you, the power dynamic shifts completely. And so does the perceived value of your work, not because your work got worse, but because your desperation made everything look cheaper. This is why two people with identical skills can charge 10 times different amounts and both still get clients. So let's bring this together: result instead of time, consultant instead of executor, and posture instead of fear. The work does not change whatsoever. What changes is how you behave in your brands and in your business. How you view yourself, how you position yourself, and how you hold yourself in the room when the client asks for a discount. I will leave you with a final message: you're not undercharging because you're not good enough. You're undercharging because you haven't made the internal shift yet. The jump from $500 to $5,000 is not necessarily about doing more. It's about how you position yourself and how you actually behave towards clients. It's really about understanding what you sell and speaking to clients at the level of their problems without becoming desperate, instead becoming a very calm person. I'm curious to know which one of these points is the biggest block for you right now. Drop it in the comments, subscribe, and I'll see you in the next one.